have been well trained.
No.
You don't have to
Final.
carry a sword to be powerful.
I won't fail you.
Or do not.
I'm not afraid.
There is no try.
Welcome back to round 2 of our tournament here in good old North Carolina. On the left, we have Bala-Trooper TIE Pilot, and on the right, another showing of FN 2199 and Count Dooku. It's a little bit hard to see with the glare there, but that is the deck that is being piloted on the Chance Cube playmat, which we do love to see. The deck on the left is an interesting deck. There are a lot of interesting tricks with it. It is a very thinky deck. A lot of reliance on endless ranks, aftermath. A lot of dice-triggered supports come into play here. With an upgrade. With a battlefield like Docking Bay, it's definitely an interesting deck. And we'll see what happens. So a nice good game handshake at the beginning of the round. Mulliganing our hands to try and see what we're going to get and whose battlefield they're going to go with. For those who haven't seen a lot of the deck on the right, there is a reliance on redeploy upgrades and upgrades that are 3 cost and higher to try and avoid the detriment of Imperial Inspection. Not something I see a lot in my local meta, but there are areas that do thrive on it. And these decks that have FN and some sort of either Unkar or discard rolling possible dice generally love to run that. So it looks like we are going with Docking Bay, giving shields to FN on the right. Docking Bay is always an interesting upgrade to deal with, and it really doesn't do much to hurt the Bala-Tik deck because he has so many characters and will likely play so few upgrades. It could potentially have a detrimental effect to FN and Count Dooku depending on how many upgrades he ends up playing on his characters. Early rollout on Dooku, we got 2 melee damage and some discard. Go ahead and play the Holdout Blaster, rolling it in. Resolving for a resource, and we're going to replace it with a Vibra Knife and with a blank. So Vibra Knife's in the pool as a blank, unresolvable. Ambush action, going to pitch to reroll, which is trying to get some use out of that Vibra Knife before activating FN, so we make sure he gets multiple uses. And Doubt has been played, so he has to... great. So Doubt rolled in the focus. He resolved the focus to flip the other Dooku die to 2 melee. And then, since Doubt's not ambush, FN was able to resolve all 4 melee damage, hitting... looks like the TIE Pilot over there. TIE Pilot's a good one to get out first because of his ability to make all ranged die in the pool unmitigatable. So Bala-Tik's rolling in, rolls in a resource. Now, the 4-character deck is definitely a slower deck to play against. But it does make it methodical. It does have a lot of staying power with a grand total of 29 health, which is a pretty high health ceiling, even though a lot of those characters can be picked off pretty easily. A nice play by Endless Ranks can always bring anybody back and give you another 7 health. I'm going to go ahead and resolve the resources. Preparing to most likely play a 3-cost weapon upgrade without replacing the Vibra Knife, allowing FN to have more power in the future rounds. Rerolling Bala and the Stormtrooper. And the TIE Pilot die as well. pitch the logistics to do that. And it looks like we've got a modified range, a single range, and a blank. That's enough to do 5 damage, which is not bad for an early first turn. I'm going to go ahead and play Force Pike. Roll that bad boy in there for 1 resource. Early gain of resources for the FN deck, which is not something we see usually without the help of Unkar, but this could play in his favor, not having finished the first round yet and already having 2 upgrades on the character. So rerolls the TIE Pilot die into a focus. Not going to do him much good since most of his die are already showing faces he'd like to see. And it looks like Force Illusion was played on Count Dooku. And we're going to reroll the TIE die again and get exactly what he wanted, the modified 2 range damage. Double checking the effect of cargo hold. Oh, epic fail on my part. That's actually docking bay, not cargo hold. Docking bay, which allows you to play a support from your hand or discard pile for 1 cheaper, which is a great help to the 4-character deck who does run a lot of 1 and 2 cost support cards, or at least typically does. And Count Dooku claiming the battlefield, and then Bala-Tik and friends playing Aftermath, which allows that character team to gain a resource when 1 character dies. And it's really death on any side of the table gains a resource. So it's definitely a deck pairing that the one with the most resources does tend to have an advantage. I'm going to roll on the lightsaber and do 2 unblockable damage to the TIE Pilot. Now, the team on the left is definitely playing a long game. The more resources he can generate, the better. And that will allow him to play endless ranks later on in the game when it is most needed to keep him alive 1 turn longer. Salvage Stand came out, which states when you roll a resource, you take a resource away from your opponent, which is always nice. And TIE Pilot is gone. With the roll-in by the Riot Baton. Gone, but not forgotten, with the potential of seeing him later on in the game, should Endless Ranks come back. Stormtrooper rolls in, and we get a resource. And opponent's resource is removed because of it, which can be crippling to the FN deck, forcing him to replace existing upgrades if he wants more weapons out. FN rolls in a modified 2, a couple resources, 1 resource and 2 shields, it looks like. He keeps the resource on the Riot Baton instead of re-rolling it. Count Dooku still has not yet rolled in, so that is a plus. Going down the line, activating Bala-Tik instead. Go ahead and rolling a focus. Count Dooku comes in for 2 melee and a blank, which is enough to get that Force Pike some use. So going ahead and rolling in that Stormtrooper, a little bit of mitigation back and forth, but he does manage to get 5 damage off onto Bala-Tik. Which is, of course, interesting to see the Force Pike. We don't see a lot of the Force Pike in these decks, but it is a great combination with FN if you are able to pull that blue card in there. Some high modified sides on there. And with FN, you always have to realize that he has more chance of running melee sides than range, so focusing on those melee weapons is always a good play. Using the holdout blasters really just for their ambush ability. So go ahead and hit an FN for 2 damage. Slowly taking him down. FN sitting at 5 damage. Count Dooku sitting at 1. Backup muscle is played on the left here. And hits FN for 1. And refreshing our hand there. So we've entered round 3 of this game. Lots of resources on the left player's side. Certainly enough to play Endless Ranks should he pull it, which could get that TIE pilot back into the game. Bala-Tik sitting over there, kind of as a decoy in a way. Bala-Tik not really the threat in this deck, but the 2 sides and all the troopers and any upgrades that get played. It is definitely a deck that doesn't go for big bursty damage, but goes for the long game, trying to endure all the damage coming its way, just enough to do the damage when it really counts. Another salvage stand comes out, hoping to cripple his opponent's resources, and before those resources are gone, using them to play out a holdout blaster, which rolls off the table twice, and we end up resolving a shield. With the ambush, he goes ahead and plays, it looks like some good mitigation and playing dug in to gain a total of 3 shields on his side of the table. Thinking about spending 1 resource here on the left. Not quite sure what he's thinking, but looks like we've got definitely interesting play with supply line, a resource generating card. So trying to continue to get resources. FN not doing a whole lot of bursty damage as we would normally expect to see this deck hit, but he does have a fair number on his side of the table, and there is 3 more. So it looks like a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 melee damage. But he does need 1 resource to play at least 6 of it. So he needs 2 resources total to pull off the entire 10, none of which he has. So he goes ahead and kills off Bala with a 3 melee damage he is able to resolve. Hoping to get some resources here, but it looks like only 1 resource die is showing, so the best he's going to be able to pull off is 5 with the Dooku and the Force Pike die. Rolling in the Stormtrooper for a total of 1 resource. Gaining 1 resource on the left. Hoping that'll be enough. Gonna roll in supply line and roll a resource. So supply line is a great die to use in combination with supply line or with salvage stand. Good chance of rolling in the ability to get rid of your opponent's resources, and which did cripple him in a way that he is not able to do all that melee damage he was hoping for. But he did reroll into 3 range. And now using Flank. Flank, a great card to use in a 4-character deck. Undoubtedly always having more ready characters than the opponent able to remove that card. So both Flanks have been used in this deck, so that's one less thing that Count Dooku has to worry about. Still a total of 13 health that has to be gone through on the left side. And it looks like a little bit more than that on the right. But Dooku definitely has the staying power and still has a Force Illusion sitting on him. So we did Endless Ranks to bring back the TIE Fighter pilot, which does add another 7 to the health pool. Replace the Force Pike with the Riot Baton, rolling in the Riot Baton, and resolving for 2 melee damage to the TIE Pilot. The more and more people are getting familiar with this game, the more and more we see the examining of the discard pile of both of yours and your opponents to see how many copies of cards have been played or if certain cards have been seen. It's definitely a good way to keep track of what's in your deck, and with only 30 cards in our decks, it is definitely something worth doing, and we see it a lot in competitive play. So sitting on 2 resources and 2 for $1. And since the battlefield was claimed, which is always nice with this 4-character deck, as long as you can survive the claiming of the battlefield, then you have a lot of things you can do after the fact, and that's really what the deck plans on doing. It's why a battlefield such as Docking Bay is so useful in this deck, because he can still get some benefit out of it, but due to the way the meta is played these days, opponents generally can't make much use of that card at all. Looks like we're sitting on 3 melee damage, resource, and 2 blanks. Not the best roll he'd like to see. Not enough to kill off anyone quite yet. Supply lines rolling in. And does not hit a resource, but it does hit a special. The special of which says reroll any number of your dice, so it's a great free reroll without having to pitch a card. Both players thinking hard about what they want to do next. Not quite expecting this 4-character deck to last as long, it seems. But there is still a lot of health left on the table. So we will have to see exactly what happens next. The best defense plays down. It's going to allow him to do 3 damage to his trooper and remove 2 of the opponent's die. That will keep his TIE Pilot alive a little bit longer. And changed his mind on that one. Left 1 melee damage into the pool and removing the resource instead. Discarding Enrage to re-roll his die and hopes to get some more damage, and he does. He still has 1 resource on the field, so I would imagine we're going to try and roll in a resource if he can, which he is unable to do. So he does 3 to the TIE Pilot to get rid of it, and then 1 to the trooper. Rolling in the Stormtrooper die, hitting that resource. Lots of consistency on the... hitting the range damage, and lots of consistency on that side of the table, hitting that damage. So gaining a resource for Count Dooku's team. Dooku's still sitting over there with 2 shields and only having taken 1 damage this round. At this point, it is likely that one or the other player will deck out before the final blow is drawn, but we'll see if enough damage is thrown either way. FN 1 damage away from defeat, so this could be a deciding point, but FN is sitting on 3 redeployable weapons, all of which can transfer over to Dooku, depending on how old that Force illusion stays. So at this point, it really is anybody's game, but even though FN is almost gone, he is sitting on a great position to take 2 high melee damage weapons and putting them on Count Dooku, who also has good melee damage sides. So it's not looking so good for our Stormtroopers. Rolling in Count Dooku, which hasn't been rolled in yet, and we hit a focus and a resource, which can definitely turn into some damage there for him. And against these troopers, even a 2 melee or a 1 melee would be enough to do something. So, Back of Muscle is going to get rid of FN, and all the upgrades are going to redeploy over to Count Dooku. It's a smart move to keep those upgrades towards the end. Something a good FN player will try and strategize their upgrade plan to make that happen, if at all possible. So the first upgrade comes down on the field of play for the troopers, and the blaster is now moved to the final trooper that is alive. So only 6 health left for the troopers, whereas Dooku has to get plowed through 8 health plus 2 shields, and there is little to no unblockable damage on the trooper side. Entering the upkeep phase, taking just enough time to ready all his cards and his characters, drawing up to 5, and very likely that Count Dooku is going to roll in enough resources to pull this off. But as you can see, there are 5 resources on the trooper side, which would be enough to play endless ranks early on. We hit a resource, so that's going to get rid of both resources, limiting the amount of things that can be done. Although the holdout blaster is replaced with a vibro knife, which is again move in terms of just the damage types that it has. And we hit 2 focus, 2 for 1, and a resource and a discard. He is choosing to re-roll a riot baton. Re-roll another riot baton. I don't know if he noticed that the blank, that was a focus. There we go. Checking that. spend 3, so he does not have endless ranks in his hands. Otherwise, he probably would have spent all 5. But he does put down a riot baton, hoping that one nice burst roll will allow him to get rid of Dooku fast and furious. It's going to be tough with a resource, a couple melee, and a range. And that would be enough damage on Count Dooku to get rid of the trooper. Giving, yet again, Count Dooku and FN2199 a win here. So what a great showing by these players. Always interesting to see the 4-character deck in play. Very combo-y, very support-heavy. And looking forward to seeing more types of creativity and innovation from deck building. Again, this is Jason with the Chance Cube. Thanks for watching.